Hello. Last week, huh? It's been passing so fast. It's already last week, week 12. And I see the email. It's like the next week is another study break week. And after next week, that will be the final exam week, starting from, I think, from May 31. Then I will be having my examinations. Okay, let me just go through it. This week, for Thursday I have a module 4 test. This module is very difficult. Even now I can't understand the concept. I will do it today and try to find out those tutorial questions. And for 30009, I will the whole class will class after Friday, because after Thursday's module test, I still need to have a quiz 2 and submit it by Friday. And then I think it's just I will relax for 1 week. Not relax, I will be free of lessons for 1 week. But during that week, I will still be learning. I'll still be learning. And fuck, today I cleaned the room. A lot of dirt, dust. So 5505, it would be easy, I think. It would not be difficult. I wouldn't say that. I'll not say it's easy. And 5507 could be a little difficult. I think I need to go back through the some of the concept. And 4401, I think that it would be difficult because I need to review of it of the calculations. But basically, I think it would not be so difficult. And there will be another some units like the communication skills, those things. Fuck, I think I also need to do it. Maybe next week or sometime. Okay, yeah, go. And I have already download. No, how to download? What is delete? I have already deleted my Facebook, YouTube on the phone, huh? And Instagram, Telegram, all deleted it. I think I will re-download it after half a month. Yeah, bye bye.
Then we look at the at failure point. We set the deviated stress at failure for effective stress for total stress will be the same. And the difference between the total stress, deviated stress, and the effective stress, deviated stress is the forward pressure. The forward pressure acting in all directions. So at a failure, the Q will be the same, but the P will be different. So this representing at failure, what is the total mean stress or the mean total stress? And this is always that the critical point or failure point we find for the dream test is starting from the PQ space, or the undream test is starting from the PQ space, because the condition we know. Once we find this failure point, remember this line and this line, they are exactly the same line. So we can project this back. Project it back to the critical state line on the PQ space. And we said this could be the effective stress part. We said we put the dotted line here. We said this could be the possible effective stress part, or maybe a straight line, maybe the other way. So this one without the monitoring of the pole pressure without the measurements, we can have a guess. We know the starting point and we know the failure point. Then we look at the active
这他妈这条线是干啥？
point. We set the deviated stress, the effective stress part. We say we put the dotted line here. We say this could be the possible effective stress parts. Or maybe a straight line, maybe first the other way. So so this one, without the monitoring of the pole pressure.
M 等于啥？ M 是一个跟摩擦角有关的东西。M 跟摩擦角有关。总压强、平均压强变化一点，它可能变化非常多。就是说你在上面加压要加非常高，它才变化一点。他妈逼
！The measurements, we can have a guess. We know the starting point and we know the failure point. Then we look at the at failure point. We set the deviated stress at failure for effective stress for total stress will be the same. And the difference between the total stress, deviated stress and the effective stress, deviated stress is the forward pressure. The forward pressure acting in all directions. So at the failure, the Q will be the same, but the P will be different. So this representing at failure, what is the total mean stress or the mean total stress? And this one is at failure, what is the mean effective stress? Because on the previous line is always the effective stress. And the difference between these two is the excess forward pressure generated during shearing.
啥？
If you have the same,
你怎么得到这条线的？
in the soil condition, but the soil is not expensive to start with. We can still use this no volume change condition to find the failure point on the PV space. You can see here, doesn't matter where the soil starting point is, when you load it, we're trying to reach the critical state. That's always the case. How you reach that depends on the status of the soil, the density of the soil, the loading path, whether it's drained or undrained bed. But doesn't matter what condition it is. When you load the soil sample, you're trying to reach to the critical state and the bed. So without volume change, we can draw a horizontal line to find the critical point, and we project it back to the critical line on the PQ space.
E 是什么？孔隙率是吧？孔隙率变小。
And this could be the possible effective stress path. But at this point of failure, this is the deviated stress at failure. So this is the deviated stress and the effective stress. And for the same deviated stress on the total stress path, they give you the excess cold pressure generated. So we already talked about this for the direct shear test. We said, when you shear dense sample with that light and shear loose sample will contract, but if you do an undrained test, do not allow the volume to change, and the positive cold pressure will try to hold soil particles together without volume change, because the soil is trying to contract, trying to move close together. So the positive cold pressure to push them back to keep the particles in space. And for the dense sample, the soil particles trying to dilate, trying to pull away from each other. So that tendency to pull away from each other will generate suction. So that's why you get negative cold pressure generated and doing the shearing for the dense sample. And the total stress path is one single total stress path if we do the fracture compression test. So this is how you find the soil strain for the undrained test. To use this frequency line on different spaces. When you read other papers, other books, and sometimes they get soil above the frequency line in the loose phase, some books say that it's a wet hot critical. I don't know why, but they call it a white hot critical, and for the dense side, we call it dry critical. Hot. Critical, I don't know why, but we call it a white hot critical, and for the dense side, we call it dry critical. So this is just basically a summary of what we just talked about. For dream test, usually is one, find the critical state point, the failure point on PQ space first, and for the undream test, and you need to look at the total stress path and using the no volume change find the critical point on the P-base space first. So as long as you know where to find the critical state first, and you can project it back to the other state, going up and down, because that's exactly the same line, same point. So we've been talking about the normal consolidation, we talked about critical state line, and this is the relationship between the different lines. So we can isotopically consolidate the solid to one.
还有一个小时啊。
condition before we load is failure. And we can do 1D consolidation. Remember that when we introduce the K0 parameter, we say K0 is 1 takeaway times 5, and normally it's around 0.6 or 0.65. So if we use the K0 to calculate horizontal effective stress, and if the K0 is less than 1, and the vertical stress and is always larger than the horizontal stress, effective stress. So if we want to consolidate the solid sample for a vertical stress and the horizontal stress, they are different, and the vertical stress is higher than the horizontal stress, then we will have this 1D consolidation, means that the vertical stress is generated by, the horizontal stress is generated by the vertical stress with the K0 ratio. And then we have initial related stress, because the vertical stress and horizontal stress are different. And when you reach the critical state line, this is the failure. So this is a normal consolidation isotopically, normal consolidation 1D, critical state line. And if you draw these three lines on the P-base space, that's three curves. And if you transform this to the semi-logarithmic space, and the three lines, and they having exactly the same gradient and same slope, which is very convenient. And the isotropic consolidation line is always on top, and the 1D consolidation is always between the critical state line and the isotopic normal consolidation line, and the critical state line is always below this line. So this is the relative position that we have. And if you look at the soil strength, you can.
What is the result?
To look at the soil strength part, the consolidation conditions, if you can draw these three lines on the log P and the base space, straight away, slope, and you will have a clear idea where the soil is, where the soil stress status is, and how they reach the limit, which is depending on whether it's doing the condition and loading or undoing condition and loading. Because in that consolidation, different consolidation conditions, the initial soil will have different voltage if the consolidated mean stress is the same. So if you do isotopic consolidation, the specific volume will be higher than the soil that experience the consolidation. Because once we already give you, if we have the same mean stress, that means the horizontal stress is less than the isotopic pressure that we did, but the vertical stress will generate a little bit of elevated stress, and it will try to compress. So that's why this one consolidation line is always below the isotopic consolidation line. When we look at the, we said sand is relatively easy to test because we can control the drainage conditions as what we want. And in reality, because sand conversion is very high, and most of the strength we're looking for is the drained condition, because this water can, access for the pressure can dissipate very quickly. Also, it depends on the foundations. If you have a very large foundation, if we talk about the mud pad foundation we designed for offshore platforms, and it can be like 80 meters in length and 50.
哇，操他妈的！做会儿白日梦啊！度短。
50 meters in weight. It's very large condition that even you have a sandy soil underneath, and if you look at the center of the foundation,
粘用土 clay soil fundamentally the same as sand. Fundamental. Important differences. Permeability, compressibility, stress history, memory. Pore pressure changes during undrained loading. Pore pressure changed during undrained loading versus OC clay, NC clay.
and depends on the loading stage, just underneath the center of the foundation, even though permeability is very high, but it has very long path for the drainage to happen, you can still have undrained conditions in the initial stage. So, but relatively, for medium-sized, small-sized foundation, for sandy materials, drained condition is the main design we do. But for clay, we said fundamentally clay and sand are the same. They're all solids. And when you do the undrained test or drained test, those are the principles you put.
他妈的，这蚂蚁！我操，这都不死！
And clay is very difficult. I mean, it's not difficult. It's just
I am very sorry, but you get on the wrong place.
In the triangle apparatus and each increment of loading you need to wait for a long time.
上哪来的蚂蚁？我操！我是这个花儿吗？我靠！
So the difference is the permeability, the time.
哎，他妈的杀生了，操！
Therefore, it's easy to do an undrained test. And also for when we design foundations for on clay, we normally and each increment of loading you need to wait for a long time until the full access for the pressure. So the difference is the permeability, the time if you want to do a drain test. That's therefore it's easy to do an undrained test. And also for when we design foundations for on clay, we normally design for undrained strength because the access for the precipitation is very slow. And clay is more compressible. When we look at the compression, the volume change, the settlement analysis, we say if you have a sand layer, don't worry about it, because the sediment in the sand layer can be very small, and the sediment in the clay layer can be quite large. The more compressibility for clay and the stress history. Because they are due to normal consolidation, the volume can decrease quite a bit. When you unload it, the soil will swell, but the swell volume can be much less than the compression, the volume increase. Therefore, we said that the clay limits its stress history. If you have the soil experience normal consolidation and unloading to the current stress condition, that experience the maximum stress in the history for the particular soil will affect what the soil behaves. Because when you load it again, you follow this reloading line, not the normal consolidation line. Because the reloading line will give you much smaller volume change than the normal consolidation line. So that's why we say the clay has memory, and whether it's normally consolidated or over consolidated, subject to the same loading, and the compressibility can be quite different. So these are the characteristics for clay. For forward pressure change during undrained loading, doesn't matter if it's drained or when it is a sand or clay. If it's undrained, if you saw it's an undrained condition, it will generate positive or negative forward pressure depending on dense state or loose state. So that's the same. But for clay, OCR is the one we use quite a lot to look at the soil current stress. You can calculate the current stress by using the unit weight and the soil depth, but you also need to know the OCR, the over consolidation ratio, because that will tell you the stress history of soil experienced. We said if the OCR is less than 2, that goes to 1, it's normally consolidated in the loose state, and soil should stay above the critical state line. And if the OCR is less than 2, then we say the soil is probably dense, and it's probably underneath the critical state line, and it will dilate. Okay, so if the clay has a very good memory of the stress history, then we separate the strength calculation for clays. The first one is the normally consolidated clay, the other one is over consolidated clay.
我是他接一回在说啥？我靠！
So for normally consolidated clay, it stays on the normal consolidation line to start with. It's very large condition that even you have unconsolidated during the condition and loading or undrained condition and loading. Because in that consolidation, different consolidation conditions, the initial soil will have different volumes. If the consolidated mean stress is the same. So if you do isotopic consolidation, the specific volume will be higher than the soil that experienced anisotopic consolidation. Because when we already give you, if we have the same mean stress, that means the horizontal stress is less than the isotopic pressure that we gave, but the vertical stress will generate a little bit of related stress, and we'll try to compress. So that's why this 1D consolidation line is always below the isotopic consolidation line. When we look at the, we said sand is relatively easy to test because we can control the drainage conditions as what we want. And in reality, because sand conversion is very high, and most of the strength we're looking for is the drained condition. Because on the foundation. If you have a very large foundation, if we talk about the the market foundation we designed for offshore platforms, and it can be like 80 meters in length and 50 meters in weight. It's very large foundation. Even you have a standing soil underneath, and if you look at the center of the foundation, and it depends on the loading speed, just underneath the center of the foundation, even though permeability is very high, but it has very long path for the drainage to happen. You can still have ongoing conditions in the initial stage. So, but relatively, for medium-sized, small-sized foundation, for sandy materials, drainage condition is the main design we do. But for clay, we said fundamentally clay and sand are the same. They're all solids. And when you do the undrained test or drainage test, those are the principles you follow. However, sand will be more easily to be drained, and clay is very difficult. I mean, it's not difficult, it just takes a long time. If you want to do a drained test for clay in the triangular apparatus and each increment of loading, you need to wait for a long time until the full access for pressure is achieved. So the difference is the permeability, the time if you want to do a drain test. Therefore, it's easy to do an undrained test. And also for when we design foundations on clay, we normally design for undrained strength because the access hold certification is very slow. And clay is more compressible. When we look at the compression in the volume change, the settlement access hold certification is very slow. And clay is more compressible. When we look at the compression in the volume change, the settlement analysis, it will say if you have a sand layer, don't worry about it, because the sediment in the sand layer can be very small, and the sediment in the clay layer can be quite large. The more compressibility for clay and the stress history. Because they are due to normal consolidation, the volume can decrease quite a bit. When you're unloaded, the soil will swell, but the swell volume can be much less than the compression, the volume increase. Therefore, we said that the clay remembers its stress history. If you have the soil experience normal consolidation and unloading to the current stress condition, that experience the maximum stress in the history for the particular soil will as a normal consolidation and unloading to the current stress condition. That remembers and the volume change because the activity test. And also for when we design foundations on clay, we normally design for undrained strength because the access hold certification is very slow. And clay is more compressible. When we look at the compression in the volume change, the settlement analysis, it will say if you have a sand layer, don't worry about it, because the sediment in the sand layer can be very small, and the sediment in the clay layer can be quite large. So more compressibility for clay and the stress history. Because they are due to normal consolidation, the volume can decrease quite a bit. When you're unloaded, the soil will swell, but the swell volume can be much less than the compression, the volume increase. Therefore, we said that the clay remembers its stress history. If you have the soil experience normal consolidation and unloading to the current stress condition, that experience the maximum stress in the history for the particular soil will affect how the soil behaves. Because when you load it again, you will follow this reloading line, not the normal consolidation line, because the reloading line will give you much smaller volume change than the normal consolidation line. So that's why we say the clay has memory, and whether it's normally consolidated or over consolidated, subject to the same loading and the complexity can be performed. So these are the characteristics for clay. For forward pressure change during entering loading, doesn't matter if it's drained or it's a sample of clay. If it's entering, if you saw it's entering the condition, it will generate positive or negative forward pressure depends on dense state or loose state. So that's the same. But for clay, OCR is the one we use quite a lot. Look at the current stress. You can calculate the current stress by using the unit weight and the soil depth, but you also need to know the OCR, the over consolidation ratio, because that will tell you the stress history of soil experience. We said if the OCR is less than 2, that goes to 1, it's normally consolidated in a loose state and the soil to stay above the critical state line. And if the OCR is less than 2, then we say the soil is probably dense and it's probably underneath the critical state line, and it will dilate. Okay, so if the clay has a very good memory of its stress history, then we separate the strength calculation for clay. The first one is the normally consolidated clay, the other one is over consolidated clay. So for normally consolidated clay, it stays on the normal consolidation line to start with, and then you would load.
这他妈什么东西！我操了 ！Specific volume change。哎呦我操！Volume change allowed。
So that means it's always we're talking about a soil on this normal consolidation line. And it's always, if it's normally consolidated, it always stay above the frequency. And it's always in the loose state. So normal consolidation clay is a loose soil. What we can find for the strength of the soil, we say we start from the previous state. And because it's no volume change. If we know the starting point, if this is isotopic consolidation to this point, and this is isotopic consolidation to this point. And then if it is a compression path or any other part, basic total stress path, you define whatever the stress path you want, but the effective stress path will be to reach the critical state point here. But the condition we have is that the soil volume at failure, which is this one here, on the critical state line, and the soil volume at the initial state is on the normal consolidation line. two are equal to each other.
VO.
And the volume, the initial volume is on the normal consolidation line, which is
Normal consolidation.
this one here, is the isotropic consolidation. So we can look at the initial mean effective stress, and this N naught and gamma here, they are the parameters of soil itself. If you have one particular soil, and these parameters you can measure in the laboratory, is the specific volume at a very low stress level. Basically, it's when the mean effective stress is about 1 kPa, then the logarithm of P is 0, and what is the specific volume of the soil. So these are the soil parameters. So if we know the soil parameters N, and we know the current stress, mean effective stress, we can calculate what is the initial specific volume. We know. And if we know the critical state line, and we know that this one is going horizontally to reach the critical state line, and then on the critical state line, the mean effective stress is the mean effective stress at failure, with the PS here. And then we can calculate the final specific volume, and these two should be equal to each other. So now we want to say that if these two equal to each other, we should be able to find what is the difference. If we know beta, we know BF, they equal to each other, we know N, we know gamma, and we know the starting point, we can find the acidic point. Then we project it back to the critical state line on PQ space. If we know the P head, and we know this line has a slope M, and we can find P at the end. So this is how we find the Q at the end. And we say the iron-free shear strength is half of the QS, the deviated stress at the end.
What? 为啥？这碰碰香真好哎。
So how do we get the SU is half of the deviated stress at failure? This is our stress condition. We have vertical loading horizontally. We do not apply any shear stress on these two planes. And this is our one circle. And if we look at this one here, at failure, the QF is the difference between the vertical stress and the horizontal stress. And this gives you the diameter of the
哦，对对对对，B，哎不对，
how do we iambic shear strength is half of the QF, the deviated stress at failure. So how do we get the SU is half of the deviated stress at failure? This is our stress condition.
啊
We have vertical loading horizontally. We do not apply any shear stress on these two planes. And this is our wall surface. And if we look at this one here, at failure, the QF is the difference between the vertical stress and the horizontal stress. And this gives you the diameter of the whole circle at failure. And the maximum shear stress here, which is the strength of the soil, is the radius of the small circle. So that's why we say that
我打一个
the
对，
SU is half of the QF here. And this another thing that we want to talk about is that the iron shear strength has nothing to do with the total stress part.
啥啥啥啥，
Is that the iron shear strength
untrained shear strength，
has nothing to do with the total stress part.
啥意思？不排水抗碱强度与总压强经过无关。
Because the iron shear strength is found from the elevate state, we projected back to this one. Doesn't matter what is the total stress part, it gives you no difference. So you can load the sample in whatever way you want, and this is the iron shear strength. Why is that? Because once we find the failure point, we project it back, we find the effective stress part at the failure point at the failure QF. And if we have a different total stress part, the only difference that made is the excess flow pressure. So when you have the total stress part at this one here, at failure, the excess flow pressure
そうですね。そうですね。
pressure is this one here. But if you have managed the total stress part in this way, at failure, the excess hold pressure is this one here, so it's much smaller than the pressure compression total stress part. So the excess hold pressure generated at failure will be different, but the strength will be the same. What does it mean? Is that this is the effective stress at failure, and if we have a smaller excess forward pressure generated at failure, we can see this more circle, just move horizontally on the horizontal axis, because whatever the excess forward pressure generated, we're acting in all directions the same. In the vertical and the horizontal directions are the same. So the difference between the vertical and the horizontal stress will not change. So therefore, it doesn't matter what's the effective stress, what is the excess forward pressure generated, and this small circle will not change. And the maximum shear stress becomes the undrained shear strength of the solid. And that's the radius of the circle, and the QF is the diameter of the circle. So that's why SU is half of the QF. And how do we calculate the strength? We said we can use these conditions to find out the undrained shear strength. If we know the M, we know the P naught, and we know the gamma, N, and lambda, we can calculate. And these are the steps. You can do it.
Woo.
Starting with this one here, we said no volume change, and the VF is this one here, which is this side, and V naught is this one. This one here, we said no volume change, and the VF is this one here, which is this side, and V naught is this one here, which is the other side. Let these two equal to each other. This is on the normal consolidation line, and this is on the critical state line. And we know everything here but EF. So we can calculate here. So just move N to this side, this part to the other side, and then we move lambda straight line. And we know everything. And V naught is this one here, which is the other.
Fuck. VL 毗邻有可能。说对了。啊，oui, oui. Failure. Failure is tau. PS. See.
Other side. Let these two equal to each other. This is on the normal consolidation line.
Tau minus n. Lambda. Oui.
This is on the critical straight line. And we know everything here but EF. So we can calculate here. We just move N to this side, this part to the other side, and then we move lambda to this side. Then we change the logarithm to exponential function. then we can get the TF is a function of P naught, gamma, and E.
You treat me like a fool. E 的，它次方乐调。Putain.
And if you do half, and then you can look at the TF on this critical state line on the PQ space and find QF, which is 10 times QF, and half the QF you get SU. So you can see here, if we substitute this one here, and this is what you exactly as well. What is SU? And sometimes we like to look at the SU over the mean effective stress ratio, and you can calculate this one. So if you know the solid is non-consolidated, and if you know all the solid parameters, and you know the current mean effective stress, the start point of the mean effective stress, and that's how we calculate under shear strength of the solid. So we'll give you this example question to say, I'll give you all the solid parameters and the starting point, the solid is consolidated by 100 kPa uniformly or isotopically, and subject to triaxial compression. So I want you to read this very carefully here. This actually gives you the condition to say what is the total stress path for this load. It is triaxial compression, and if it's reducing the horizontal stress, which is a triaxial extension or some whatever condition, the loading condition we gave you here is to tell you that is the total stress path you should use.
Okay, let me calculate. Tuesday, 2021, May 18th. Suppose parameter for coding tau in lambda m of given sample was consolidated isotropic to P0. Isotropic. Then subject to triangular type compression. Find Andrew shear strength of the conic clay. Example. 5-4这他妈的应该不难吧 ？SU 等于 M 比2 P0 P2 E 的lambda 分之我操tau 减 n 接一回等着一个2分之1乘上一个100千帕，再乘上一个 E 的 lambda 0.19 tau 减 n 3.14减去 n 是tau 减 n 3.26，他妈的，我他妈不到最后一刻，我他妈都听不懂，直接 等着一个，这他妈谁看得出来？0.5乘100，再乘上1的括号分号3.14减3.26分之0.19为0.19。26.59，先怕了。Find the shear strength. Okay. Number 2. Calculate the export pressure during the shear failure. 我操，这他妈的是怎么算的？你没给 M 呀？哦，这给了有3。Specific volume. Specific. P0，你这个 QF， 你的 QF 等于一个2倍的 SU 嘛，2倍 SU， 26.59乘53.18 kPa， 然后呢，是吧？这一段是这么多，那这一段，我想想啊，你反正是这样画的，这儿是100，嗯，100呢，你这个地方是3:1，你这一段是 Q， 你这个3的地方是53.18，那这下面这段距离是53/53.18加100，啊，这是这个地方压力，然后这个地方你 CL， 你这 M 是多少？是吧？你这是 M 是1，那你这个 PF M 是1，那 PF 等于一个是的。Not really work for you. Nobody can equal me. Oh, had enough combo of 24. You are unforgettable. I need to let you know. 未来 QF equals to 53.18，所以 U 等于100加53/53.18减去53.18。Not really work for you. Nobody can equal me. 加上 除以3减去这个，4等于64.555千帕。
Oh,
show token!
Shear strain minus 3.4. You have all the parameters, you substitute everything into this formula, and you can calculate the untrained shear strain. And then the second one is what I mentioned, that we want to calculate at failure, what is the excess cold pressure generation. And this is a good solving. You should get a positive excess cold pressure. That's the first thing you should realize. If you get a negative value, that's something wrong. And again, we said we use this one here. We said if we know SU, we can calculate QF. If we know QF, we can calculate PF. If we know the PF, and if we also know the PF for total stress and the PF for effective stress, and the difference between these two, the excess cold pressure. So following the same direction, so we calculate QF 2 times SU, and we find the PF, the effective stress on the critical strain line is the QF divided by M, and then we need to find the total mean stress at the critical point, at the QF point. So what we mean here is that we already find the QF here. We need to find the same at the same QF point. What is on this total stress path? Remember, we did this isocompression test, and this is our total stress path. So when you look at untrained shear strain, has nothing to do with the loading path. But when you look at the excess cold pressure, the total stress path comes into play. On this total stress path, at the same QF, we want to find what is the total stress, total mean stress here. So how do we find this one? We need to start from this point, starting point, and then we use this slope here, which is 3/1. So because that's the pressure compression. So the starting point is 100 kilopascal, that's the pre-conformation stress, and the slope is 1/3 times the QF. So this is the QF, and this is the 1/3 slope. So that gives you the increment of the total mean stress. So 100 plus 1/3 of the QF, it gives you the total mean stress. And the mean total stress takes the mean effective stress, that gives you the excess cold pressure generated at failure when the soil reaches the critical state line. So this is the whole procedure. That find the untrained shear strength of normal conservative clay, find out what is the excess cold pressure generated at failure. Okay. And for this, and this is an exercise for you. Just to check if you really understand what I'm going to talk about. Have a break, whatever you need, and then work on this question.
走了，黄世聪在非洲干什么？ 还他妈没搞完。又来个题吗？X12 simplicity，那么的0.2。一样吗？我操！Engine shear stress SU equals to 2/m(p0)(1) 的那么的分之tau减 n 等于1/1.2乘上 p0是吧？120乘上 e 的那么的0.2 tau 3.14减3.26等于1.2除以2乘120乘13.14减3.26，0.2等于39.51千帕。Calculate export pressure。第二步 ，QF equals RSU 等于
So what do you guys do when you need de-stress?
79。
What's your way to de-stress? You need
U
sleep. Very good. I mean, if you can sleep, that's the best way to relax. But sometimes when you do anxious or de-stress, you can't sleep. I think that's probably the most difficult thing in life. If you can sleep, by all means, sleep is the best way to relax and to de-stress.
QF
And also, I think is the one. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist. I don't know anything about it. But my theory, I think, if you can regulate your sleep, you can sleep the sufficient amount, and that's the best way to help. And I think it's crucial for young people because I have experience with my daughters. They don't want to sleep at night. They cannot get up in the morning. I said that's not good. You can't sleep. You can't recharge your body, and you can't do things efficiently.
C
If you can, by all means, manage your sleep, and you can do things better in the daytime. What were the other things you do besides sleep? Pardon? Sleep. Nice. That's very good.
That's very good.
I have a spare bedroom. When stress is not cleaning. But I do that as well. I think something I can't remember who said that. Something said if nothing works out and nothing can be solved, just go to clean floor, wipe the floor, whatever. Something that you have to do that to get away from it. Yeah, clean. That's very good. What else? Yeah. What do you do? Yeah.
I never knew what we are doing.
Okay. So what do you do exactly?
没功夫他妈听你闲喷。
Yes. Okay. So
خلاص.
so that's question number 5. And then when you calculate the excess total pressure, just from SU find QF, from QF to find PF, from PF, and this is PF and the mean effective stress, and then the total stress is from the total stress part. It's the initial stress plus the increase of total stress due to the QF, and that's 140.
他妈的怎么没塞？
Make sure that you put a unit on every single number that needs units, and the difference is 146 take away 65, and I give you the 80.49 kilopascal. So that's exactly the same position, and I just make sure that you can, you know.
Excuse me.
You don't need to remember the values, okay? But you need to be familiarized with this procedure. So it doesn't matter what the parameters change, and that's the procedure you need to follow to get the unit chases and the excess total pressure you need to find out.
SPT AN.
Yes, so the really depends on the stress, total stress, it depends on the loading condition. So this one of the three is only for the stress compression test. So if you have a different stress path, you will have different ones. But stress compression is the most.
Okay. 是吧？操你妈！18号。我靠！你们这个可以改的。操！我以为它设计好的嘞。行吧，我又 out 了啊。他妈这功能我都不用。Okay, so Tuesday I don't need to change. Start. Reset. Start. 哦，这个。哦，这是 alarm。alarm。reset。我看看啊，这他妈会到10级 PM。这是查表。reset。操你妈！时间 OK 啊，5月18号。5月18，我靠！我这个表他妈买了2年多，这个功能我才他妈使用了2年多，只他妈看过，只当做最普通的表看过，他妈想不到还有闹钟功能，我操 ！Benson， 妈的，这还他妈去尼日利亚的时候忘带手表了，飞机上买了一块， 我操，2年居然我都没看懂它啥功能。它有一个计时，有一个表，还能设置日期，日期我就没设过，没动过。刚买回来，刚开机设了一次，还超了20分钟，不错啊，很不错。我看它6点响不响？
common one. Price compression test. The radius depends on the stress, total stress, or it depends on the loading condition. So yes, so the gradient, it depends on the stress, total stress, or it depends on the loading condition. So this 1/3 is only for the price compression test.
Over consolidation clear.
So if you have a different stress path, you will
Initial state. Consolidate. To Pmax and allow as well. NC isotropic swell V0 哎，他妈看着好他妈头痛啊！我操，眼也疼，头也疼。BO Pmax V at Pmax 加上K L Pmax Pmax 减 P0。Okay.
will have different ones. But pressure compression is the most common one we do in the laboratory. Yeah. Because that's representing the loading conditions for most of the formation design, because you put some load on top of it. You add political stress. Okay, so we know where is untrained shear stress for the normally consolidated clay. We will look at the over consolidated clay. So starting point that we need to over consolidate solid to P max, and then we release the pressure to make the soil over consolidated. So this is our starting point. And this is the loading. Make the soil to normally consolidated clay. We will look at the over consolidated clay. So starting point that we need to over consolidate soil to P max, and then we release the pressure to make the soil over consolidated. So this is our starting point. And this is the loading and unloading history that soil is experiencing. So when we look at the soil, this is what we know. We can go to underground, we can sample the soil, and we can calculate its stress, and we can measure its
操，我该去拿东西了。行吧，也看的差不多了，回来再看啊。我去拿东西，说好5点半，忘了去了，晚上回来看。